Well, let's head to the US now and get the latest on the murder of Charlie Kirk and the ongoing investigation. Joining us is host of Brad versus Everyone podcast, Brad Polumbo. Brad, thanks for coming on the program. You wrote an interesting piece in the Washington Examiner this week, saying, amongst other things, and I'm quoting you here, the justification being put forward to defend Charlie Kirk's murder isn't just outrageous, insensitive and grotesque in its own right. If widely adopted, the underlying sentiment that words are violence could quite literally destroy the fabric of our civilization and eventually result in civil war. I absolutely concur, but I wanted to ask you this. Why is the left so afraid of disagreement and debate?
Because they know that many of their ideas will lose, because many of their ideas are fringe and unpopular. And that's why they have to try to reframe some of the things the far left, in particular, the online left in America, is reframing disagreement itself as violence to justify, oh, Charlie Kirk's words were violent to immigrants, violent to LGBT people, whatever they want to say. None of it's true. He never actually advocated for violence against anyone. That's a total lie. They're just framing his disagreement as some form of act of aggression. And that's a short path to outright civil war and bloodshed in the streets. It's an anti-civilization and anti-human ideology. It's really, I think, the first and most tragic outcome of this is, of course, the loss to his family and friends and children. But the second biggest issue with all of this is the really insane portion of our public that's been revealed by this.
Well, I was baffled by Democrat Representative Jasmine Crockett. She said that calling Trump Hitler, for example, doesn't necessarily mean killing him, but I think that words matter. Have a listen to what she said.
We've got to talk about like what it means when you're running for president or you're running for one of these higher offices and you go out there and you talk about beating people up. You go out there and you say things like, I could shoot somebody in the middle of the street in New York and I could still win. We got to talk about like that. That is next level. Mm-hmm. Me disagreeing with you, me calling you, I want to be Hitler. All those things are like not necessarily saying go out and hurt somebody.
Brad, this is exactly how Charlie Kirk was killed. Words matter.
Words do matter, and it's just incoherent and bizarre to, on one side of your mouth, call Trump Timu Hitler or wannabe Hitler, which is what Jasmine Crockett and other Democrats have said over and over again. But then out of the other side of your mouth, say political violence is always wrong. I don't want anyone hurt. I appreciate the latter sentiment, but it's kind of belied by the former if you actually mean it, because most people think that Hitler assassinating would be justified, right? Like that violence to stop a madman who's going to kill millions of people would be justified. So when you are constantly comparing Trump or other Republicans to Hitler, fascists, Nazis, this is the same, I think when some people on the right call Democrats traitorous scum or overwrought rhetoric in that right, all of it needs to be taken down, this temperature and this condemnation, because most of it is not actually fully warranted, and it could inspire some madman. Even if you say out of the other side of your mouth, but no violence, it could inspire someone. So we should all just knock this off.
Authorities, of course, have in custody the alleged shooter. Utah's governor has said the state will pursue the death penalty against Tyler Robinson. He, of course, is the major suspect. Donald Trump has already said he hopes that this guy gets the death penalty if convicted. What's the deal with the death penalty in the US? How hard is it to pursue? And in your view, should Tyler Robinson get the death penalty if convicted?
Well, it's quite difficult to pursue the death penalty in the US, but in this case, it's still an option. Both Utah has the death penalty and actually is one of the only states that still has the option for death penalty by firing squad. Meanwhile, the federal government also still has the option to pursue death penalty cases were they to charge him with federal crimes like terrorism or other things. And I am somebody generally kind of concerned about the death penalty. Generally, it's not something I believe in. But this is a case where I think if we have the death penalty, let's use it. Like, let's send a message that this is not what we accept as a society. And that if you do that, honestly, I wouldn't be against the firing squad. I think it's that important to send a message that we cannot tolerate political terrorism and political violence, and that America is a country where we absolutely abhor people who would use violence against people who simply use their words.
I absolutely agree. We have to send a really strong message, totally. Brad, the suspect was living with his trans partner who was in the process of transitioning from a man to a woman. Violence from the trans community and their supporters against anyone who disagrees is now a worrying trend. How much attention is this getting?
Well, it's getting a lot of attention based on this big preliminary report from Fox News. And I think two things can be true at the same time. One is that there is a scary and militant wing of the transgender movement, at least in the US. I've personally been threatened and harassed for daring to say that kids shouldn't get sex changes and other such heinous statements. And two, based on the reporting we have so far, though, it doesn't actually appear that this individual has done anything wrong. They're cooperating with police, and as far as we know right now, had no knowledge ahead of time of this crime. So I think we should hold space for that, because and not, some people are leaping to conclusions about this that I think are getting ahead of the facts and demonizing all people who identify as trans. I think we've got to be cautious in a breaking story like this.
Yeah, good call. Brad Polumbo, appreciate your time tonight. Thanks so much.